On October 28, 2023, Matthew Perry was found unresponsive in a hot tub at his home in Los Angeles, California. He was pronounced deceased at 4:17 p.m. that same day, at the age of 54. Matthew was an American and Canadian actor. He gained international fame for starring as Chandler Bing on the NBC television sitcom Friends. He also starred in many other shows and films. For most of his life, Matthew suffered from severe addictions to illegal substances and alcohol. Matthew was born in Williamstown, Massachusetts. His parents separated when he was a year old, and his mother remarried. He was mostly raised by his mother in Ottawa, Ontario, but he also lived briefly in Toronto and Montreal. He attended Rockcliffe Park Public School and Ashbury College, a boarding school in Ottawa. He had 4 younger maternal half-siblings as well as a younger paternal half-sister. Matthew started misbehaving when he was 10 years old. He stole money, smoked, let his grades slip, and he beat up fellow student and future Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. He later said he behaved like that because he felt like a family outsider after his mother started having kids with her new husband. At age 14, he began consuming alcohol and, by the time he was 18, he was drinking every day. Matthew practiced tennis, often for 10 hours per day, and became a top-ranked junior player in Canada with the possibility of a tennis career. But his prospects diminished when he moved from Ottawa, at age 15, to live with his father in Los Angeles, where competition was much tougher. At 15, Matthew began studying acting at the Buckley School, a college preparatory school in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles, from which he graduated in 1987. While in high school, he took improvisational comedy classes at LA Connection in Sherman Oaks. Matthew had a perfectionist and obsessive personality, spending many hours perfecting his answering machine message. He also believed in God, with whom he had a very close relationship, calling himself a seeker. He became an alcoholic at the age of 14. He also became addicted to pain medication after a jet ski accident in 1997. He completed a 28-day rehab program at the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation that same year. He took as many as 55 pills per day, which caused his weight to drop 128 pounds, 58 kilograms. 3 years later, in May 2000, at the age of 30, he was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center with alcohol-induced pancreatitis. In February 2001, Matthew paused productions of Friends and Serving Sarah for 2 months so that he could enter inpatient rehabilitation for his addictions to the pain medication and alcohol. He said later that, due to his substance use disorder, he had no memory of 3 years of his work on Friends. Matthew said in 2002, he had tried not to drink on the set of Friends. Sometimes he did arrive with extreme hangovers and would shake or sweat excessively on set. During the later seasons of the series, he was frequently intoxicated on set. His castmates made efforts to help him, even staging an intervention, but they were unsuccessful. Through his recovery, he became an advocate for rehabilitation and a spokesperson for the National Association of Substance Court Professionals. In 2013, he received the Champion of Recovery Award from the White House Office of National Substance Control Policy. In 2018, Matthew spent 5 months in a hospital for a gastrointestinal perforation. While he was in hospital, he nearly passed away due to his colon bursting from substance abuse. He spent 2 weeks in a coma and used a colostomy bag for 9 months. Upon being admitted to the hospital, doctors told his family that he had a 2% chance of survival. He was connected to an extracorporeal membrane oxygenation machine. 2 years later, while attending rehab in Switzerland, Matthew faked pain to get a prescription for 1,800 milligrams pain medication per day and was having daily ketamine infusions. He was given propofol in conjunction with a surgery, which stopped his heart for 5 minutes. The resulting CPR resulted in 8 broken ribs. He paid $175,000 for a private jet to take him to Los Angeles to get more substances. When doctors there refused, he spent another $175,000 to take a private jet back to Switzerland. In 2022, he estimated that he had spent $9 million on his addiction, including 14 stomach surgeries, 15 stays in rehab, and therapy twice a week for 30 years, and had attended approximately 6,000 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. He also released his memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. The next year, Matthew was found unresponsive in his hot tub. Later, on December 15, a medical examiner ruled that Matthew passed away from acute effects of ketamine. An autopsy report found that the amount of the ketamine in his blood was in the range used for general anesthesia during surgery. Matthew first started using the ketamine to treat depression and anxiety at a local clinic. Treating depression with ketamine is a new form of therapy but has showed some promising results. His last known session of which having been the week prior to his demise. However, the report stated, the ketamine in his system could not be from that infusion therapy, since ketamine's half-life is 3 to 4 hours, or less. Dr. Robert McCarran, a professor of psychiatry, said that the therapy can still be harmful. He said, ketamine has the potential to harm someone or end someone if not monitored carefully and used in an approved therapeutic way. Other circumstances that contributed to his demise included the effects of buprenorphine, drowning, and coronary artery disease. The Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner said in a statement that, at the high levels of ketamine found in his postmortem blood specimens, the main lethal effects would be from both cardiovascular overstimulation and respiratory depression, while drowning contributes due to the likelihood of submersion into the pool as he lapsed into unconsciousness. Coronary artery disease contributes due to exacerbation of ketamine-induced myocardial effects on the heart. In May 2024, an investigation was opened by the Los Angeles Police Department to determine how he obtained the high dose of ketamine that caused his demise. Police said the investigation uncovered a broad underground criminal network of illegal substance suppliers who distributed large quantities of ketamine. Law enforcement agencies executed search warrants and seized computers, phones, and other electronic equipment to determine who was responsible for the supply of the substances. On August 15, 2024, indictments and charges were filed against 5 people: Matthew's assistant, Kenneth Iwamasa, also known as Kenny, acquaintance and alleged street dealer, Eric Fleming, Drs. Salvador Plasencia and Mark Chavez, and Jasveen Sunga, a North Hollywood woman known as the Ketamine Queen, alleging involvement in the distribution of ketamine that caused the demise of Matthew and 1 other person. Kenny, Eric, and Dr. Mark have all agreed to plead guilty, while Jasveen and Dr. Salvador have pleaded not guilty. The charges listed by the Department of Justice are as follows. Jasveen Sunga, aka the Ketamine Queen, 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine, 1 count of maintaining a substance-involved premises, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute ketamine, and 5 counts of distribution of ketamine. Dr. Salvador Plasencia, dubbed Dr. P, 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine, 7 counts of distribution of ketamine and 2 counts of altering and falsifying documents or records related to the federal investigation. Eric Fleming pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine and 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in demise. Eric admitted in court documents that he distributed the ketamine that ended Matthew's life. He admitted to obtaining the ketamine from his source, the Ketamine Queen, and to distributing 50 vials of ketamine to Matthew's live-in personal assistant, Kenny. Half of them 4 days before Matthew's demise. Dr. Mark Chavez, a physician who has agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. He admitted in his plea agreement to selling ketamine to Dr. P, including ketamine that he had diverted from his former ketamine clinic. Kenneth Iwamasa, Matthew's live-in personal assistant, conspired with the Ketamine Queen, Eric, and Dr. P to illegally obtain ketamine and distribute it to Matthew. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine causing demise, and admitted to repeatedly injecting Matthew with ketamine without medical training, including performing multiple injections on Matthew on the day of his demise. Court records show that Kenny obtained ketamine from Matthew from a number of sources, spending over $55,000 on it over the course of the roughly month-long period before the actor passed away. Federal prosecutors claimed in a criminal complaint that Kenny disposed of illegal substances, syringes, and other paraphernalia before dialing 911. Additionally, he phoned the Ketamine Queen to seek her advice before getting rid of the substances. According to court documents, Matthew told Kenny to shoot me up with a big one, referring to a dose of ketamine. He also asked his aide to prepare the jacuzzi on the day of his demise. Matthew was later found face down in the hot tub. The same documents reveal that Matthew had previously been found unconscious at his home twice. LA Police Chief Dominic Choi says his department let the facts drive the investigation, and it led them to the group who are charged today. He thanks authorities involved for their hard work and diligence. He also adds that this case shows that you cannot get away with this regardless of your background or socio-economic status. According to a source who has access to the crime scene photos, the master suite was in a complete mess. There were clothes everywhere, towels on the floor, and it was dirty. The rest of the property was clean and tidy. Trey Lovell, a former prosecutor and trial attorney in California, said, "Some cases like this can prove hard to prosecute before a jury because when somebody chooses to do something of their own volition, like taking substances, we tend to hold those people accountable for their own actions." He added, "It's sometimes more difficult to try these cases when you try to hold other people accountable." Lovell says while Matthew was conducting unlawful conduct, he's also a victim. He should have been helped in regard to his addiction and not exploited. The indictment against the ketamine queen alleges she previously sold ketamine to a man in August 2019, who passed away of an overdose within a day of the deal. A family member of the man then texted her saying, "The ketamine you sold my brother ended his life. It's listed as the cause of demise." Within days of receiving the message, she did an internet search for, "Can ketamine be listed as a cause of demise?" Authorities say this confirms that she knew ketamine could be fatal. During a news conference, we heard how authorities tracked communication between the 5 defendants. Authorities say the suspects charged used coded languages in messages, calling ketamine things like Dr. Pepper, or bots, or cans. In one exchange, Dr. P wrote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay," in reference to Matthew. Another of his texts said he wanted to be Matthew's go-to for substances. In one text, the ketamine queen referred to her ketamine source as the scientist and master chef. After Matthew's demise, investigators say she sent a message to one of the other suspects telling him to delete all their messages. Court documents show that 2 days after Matthew's demise, co-conspirator Eric texted the ketamine queen, saying, "Please call. Got more info and want to bounce ideas off you. I'm 90% sure everyone is protected. I never dealt with Matthew, only his assistant." So the assistant was the enabler. He also asked her whether ketamine stays in your system or if it is immediately flushed out. The 41-year-old has been accused of selling 50 vials of ketamine to Matthew for about $11,000, including the batch that resulted in his demise. She has been described by authorities as a substance trafficker who knew the ketamine she distributed could be fatal. A search of her North Hollywood home uncovered a substance emporium, according to authorities, and strongly suggested that she was supplying many other people. The investigation into Matthew's demise focused on who supplied the ketamine that led to his fatal overdose. Kenny injected Matthew with ketamine on October 28, resulting in his demise and serious bodily injury. Kenny had never received medical training and knew little, if anything, about administering and or treating patients with controlled substances. Co-conspirator Dr. P was well aware of Kenny's inexperience. In the 4 days leading up to and including Matthew's demise, prosecutors alleged Kenny administered more than 20 shots of ketamine to Matthew, 3 of those on the day he passed away. Kenny, Dr. P, Eric and Dr. Mark were aware that Matthew had a history of substance abuse and addiction, and that he had sought help, on multiple occasions, to treat his addiction and to maintain his sobriety. Reporters at the news conference in Los Angeles asked about links to other cases, whether other celebrities were involved and whether anyone else might be charged. Martin Estrada, the U.S. Attorney for the California Central District, said the investigation is still ongoing and said he couldn't comment or speculate on others potentially connected to the network. DEA Administrator Milgram said Matthew sought treatment for depression and anxiety. He ended up turning to unscrupulous doctors who saw him as a quick way to make money. She added that without performing any medical evaluations or monitoring him, they supplied the actor with large amounts of ketamine. She said they charged him about $2,000 for a vial that cost $12. She goes on to say that Matthew's desperation was not met with help, but exploitation. Though they have announced the charges in the case, officials said that the investigation into Matthew's demise and the suspects is still not over. Cast members wrote, "We are all so utterly devastated by the loss of Matthew. We were more than just castmates. We are a family. There is so much to say, but right now we're going to take a moment to grieve and process this unfathomable loss. In time we will say more, as and when we are able. For now, our thoughts and our love are with Matty's family, his friends, and everyone who loved him around the world."